as you just read, unfortunately, there have been yet another 2 mass shootings fairly recently, and this has brought the gun control issue back into political debate. There are some hot and fiery opinions on both sides, both within the political arena and within the general public. But I guess what people feel is that these big words, even talk in the legislature, never translates into action. And for now, at least, things still seem unlikely to change. Why do you think some politicians support gun control and others oppose it?
This one's actually quite simple with politicians. Anytime that this sort of gun control issue is pushed into the spotlight, it's all about getting votes. And the fact is if you are a conservative lawmaker and you want to be reelected or have someone from your party elected, you pretty much have to be on the side of the freedom to own and even carry a gun. And so it is definitely for politicians, it's a thing that they need to agree with in order to have ability to be reelected. And on the opposite side, if you are a Democratic lawmaker or someone who's not on the non-conservative side, and you are for owning a weapon, or I'm sorry, a firearm, then you will also lose votes. So now it's become a big political divide, basically because of who will vote for you.
I see.
It's a very simple answer, actually. Yeah.
In the article, they mentioned this phrase that gun control in America is a pipe dream. I mean, would you go that far and say that it's absolutely impossible?
It's going to take a generational change. Like I said, it is about voting. And so if you do have a new generation, and maybe 3-4 generations from now, who are very against firearms, even those who are a bit on the conservative side, then the politicians like that will change over to legislating them and reducing and even maybe outright banning the ownership of them, because it is a democracy, and once the majority of people for both parties start to be against firearms, then it will change. In America right now, it is a pipe dream. It's not going to happen because the majority of people on one side, and some liberal people as well, do enjoy the ownership of firearms and think it's completely fine to have it. And of course, you do have the Constitution and that whole argument, which will be hard to argue against. But again, the Constitution can be amended through popular pressure in this case. Of course, only through lawmakers, but popular pressure does change the minds of the lawmakers.
Well, I do believe it is called the Fifth Amendment, the First Amendment.
Wow.
An amendment is a change.
Yes, the amendment is a change, and there are many amendments, and there's actually, hilariously, amendments to other amendments. Famously, of course, the amendment to ban alcohol, and then the amendment to unban the ban on alcohol.
Of course.
Yeah.
Oh, thank God you unbanned it. Oh.
Yes. Oh, America. See, this is another thing. The very loud minority changed the rule and the law because they voted a lot of people in and were active. And then the majority of America said, we're going to drink still. You know that, right? And through pressure over a certain generation, the lawmakers switched. And that can happen with guns too, just not as quickly probably. Have you known any country, like obviously not America, that has successfully disarmed their population?
Well, I did read about Australia in the 1990s. I'm a 90s girl myself, and they had, around the mid-90s, I was a teenager, they had a rather big and shocking mass shooting event, which was highly publicized. And at the same time, they had a very new prime minister. And I guess he was on the conservative side, and he wanted to make his mark. I think he was only like 4 weeks into his premiership.
Well, he made it.
And then, so he decided to take this really hard line, and he brought in a new legislation banning guns. So he offered an amnesty, which allowed people to hand in their guns and receive payment for them. I think something like 650,000 guns were handed in over a few month period. And they noticed in the following years that both suicides and gun-related violence dropped dramatically.
Yeah, absolutely. The numbers don't lie. Of course, there is debate about the numbers a little bit, but in the end, of course, taking guns off the street is going to reduce gun violence. And the fact that you can turn in your gun without any sort of punishment being held by you or any sort of questions being asked, just come in, we'll give you the money, and just leave. We don't care what you did with it or what happened.
Yeah, if it was registered legal firearm or unregistered, they would pay for them all.
Yeah, and I think there's a bit of national spirit behind the first one of like, wow, this was a terrible thing. Maybe we should sell our guns. So there's, definitely a bit of a national spirit there, but that sort of national spirit is not really happening in the US. Even after the mass shootings, 250 plus a year, it's just not quite changing the minds. In fact, it's solidifying in some people's minds the necessity to own personal sort of defense capabilities, which is for a lot a firearm.
And I think, the Australian Constitution has never contained the right to bear arms. Their history of weapon ownership is significantly different to the American.
Yeah, that is true. That is true.
Let's take a look at that vocabulary.
Push something into the spotlight.
Push something into the spotlight.
Reignite.
Reignite.
Legislature.
Legislature.
Pipe dream.
Pipe dream.
Bent on doing something.
Bent on doing something.